You know that moment, right? You're in the middle of saying something important and you see it. That little flicker in their eyes. The exact second they've just checked out. We've all been there. But what if you could change that? What if you could make sure that when you speak, people are actually tuned in? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We're going to break down the psychology of how to make people really, truly listen. Okay, just picture this for a second. Two totally different conversations. On one side, you've got someone who's completely engaged. They're nodding along, making eye contact, asking thoughtful questions. You feel like, wow, they actually get it. You feel heard. But then, there's the other side, the distracted listener. Their eyes are glued to their phone, you're getting those empty ahas, and you just know their mind is somewhere else entirely. It feels awful, right? You feel totally ignored.
And here's the crazy part. It's the same you. Maybe you're even talking about the exact same thing. So what changed? What's the real difference here? Well, it's almost never about the topic itself. It all comes down to the experience you create for the person listening. It's about building a genuine connection.
So to understand how to build that connection, we got to start with a really basic truth. People don't listen just because your mouth is moving. It's not how it works. Their brains are working like crazy, constantly filtering everything. And they only really tune in when a message manages to break through that filter. It has to feel relevant or interesting or somehow meaningful to them. And this whole filtering thing, it happens in a split second. I mean, think about it. Our brains are bombarded with tens of thousands of words every single day. So, to cope with all that information, they have this built-in mental funnel. And for everything we hear, it makes an instant call. Is this important? Should I lean in? Or is this just noise I can tune out? Our whole job as communicators is to make sure our message is the one that becomes the signal, not the noise. So how in the world do we do that? Well, it starts by getting one thing straight. Listening isn't just one simple skill. It's actually a journey through 3 different levels. And honestly, most of us, without even realizing it, spend almost all our time stuck on the first level. Let's break down what these 3 levels actually look like. Okay, so take a look at this table. Level 1, that's passive listening. This is when you're technically hearing the words, but really you're just waiting for a pause so you can jump in and say what you want to say. It's that classic head nod while you're scrolling on your phone, and the outcome? Yeah, pretty much zero real connection. Then you've got level 2, active listening. Now we're getting somewhere. You're actually present. You're trying to understand, saying things like, okay, so what I'm hearing is we need to pivot, right? This gets you way more clarity. But then there's level 3, deep listening. This is the game changer. This is where you're listening not just to the words, but to the emotion, the tone, the hesitation. You're picking up on what's not being said. And that's how you build some serious trust.
So if there's one thing to really grab onto here, it's this. Your goal shouldn't just be to get your point across. As a really great communicator, your goal is to guide those important conversations up the ladder all the way to level 3. Because that's the place where people don't just hear your words, they feel completely, totally understood by you.
But how do we get to level 3? Well, to do that, we need to geek out a little bit and look at what's actually going on inside the listener's brain. What flips that switch from tuning out to leaning in? And trust me, this is where the science gets super interesting. So it all boils down to this thing called selective attention. You've probably experienced this before. It's like the cocktail party effect. Imagine you're in a super loud, crowded room, right? You can't make out any single conversation. But then, from clear across the room, someone says your name, and you hear it instantly. That's your brain's selective attention kicking in, filtering out all that other noise to zero in on what matters to you.
And check out this number, because it really drives the point home. Our brains are literally designed to ignore almost everything. A whopping 99% of all the sensory info we take in gets tossed out immediately. It has to, otherwise we'd be completely overwhelmed. So your message, it's fighting to be in that tiny precious 1%.
So what's the hack? How do we get into that 1% club? It's simple. Stories. Seriously. When we hear a story, our brain just lights up like a Christmas tree. It activates the emotional and visual parts of our brain. Get this, 22 times more than just hearing a dry list of facts. So next time, instead of just saying, here's the data, try opening with, you're not going to believe what happened, and just watch how the energy in the room completely changes. And here's another key to unlocking the brain: curiosity. The neuroscience here is so cool. When you trigger someone's curiosity, the brain gets a little hit of dopamine,
And that dopamine does something amazing. It basically doubles their ability to remember whatever information comes next. It's like it preps the brain and says, hey, pay attention, this next part is important.
Okay, so now we know the why behind all this. Let's get into the how. This is your practical, hands-on toolkit for actually getting to that level 3 listening. And we're going to start with that powerhouse we just mentioned, curiosity.
This is such a simple shift, but man, it is powerful. Instead of making a flat statement like, we need to fix this problem, which kind of puts all the weight on you, try turning it into a question. Something like, what do you think would be the best way to solve this? See the difference? You're not just talking at them anymore. You're inviting them into the conversation.
And why does this work so well? Well, when you ask a question, you create this little information gap in their brain. It's like a mental itch that their brain just has to scratch. All of a sudden, they're not a passive audience member anymore, they're an active participant. And because they're participating, they feel a real sense of ownership over where the conversation goes.
All right, tool number 2 in our toolkit is something called the mirror effect. And this isn't just some fluffy idea. This is a technique that the best negotiators and therapists in the world use. It's all about building that subconscious connection by subtly matching someone's energy, the speed they're talking at, and even repeating some of their keywords back to them.
Okay, let's make this super practical. Imagine someone says to you, I'm really struggling with this project. The default, level 1 response is usually something like, I understand, which is, fine, it's just a bit generic. But a level 3, mirroring response, that would sound more like this. It sounds like this project has been really overwhelming. You see that? You're using their emotional word, overwhelming, right back at them. Then you follow up with a question to dig a little deeper.
And when you do this, the effect is almost instant. The other person immediately feels like you get them. They feel seen. Their defenses come down, trust goes way up, and the whole conversation just gets deeper. You're basically sending a signal that says, hey, I'm right here with you. We're on the same team.
Now for our final tool. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all if you want your message to actually stick. Here's the deal. You can have the most brilliant logic, the most perfect data, but if you don't connect with people on an emotional level, they're just not going to remember it.
This says it all, doesn't it? Emotion is literally the glue for memory. Just think about it in your own life. You forget facts, you forget stats from a presentation you saw last week, but you never ever forget how someone made you feel. That stuff sticks. And look, this doesn't have to be some big, dramatic thing. You can just intentionally weave little bits of emotion into how you talk. You can spark some surprise by starting with, what if I told you? You can show empathy by saying, I know this whole thing has been frustrating. Or create a little urgency with, we really need to get on this today. These little phrases are what turn a boring, transactional message into something that actually has an impact.
All right, so we've covered the why this stuff works and the how to actually do it. Now it's time to put it all into practice. Because let's be real, theory is great, but change only happens when you actually do something. So I've got a super simple 3-day challenge for you to start building these skills right away.
Ready? Here it is. Day 1 is all about mirror practice. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to find 3 conversations and just try to mirror one phrase and match the other person's pace. That's it. Day 2, the curiosity trigger. Try to start 2 conversations with a question instead of a statement. And finally, day 3 is the emotion hook. In one key conversation, just intentionally add one emotional phrase. Something like, I know this feels like a lot. See? Totally doable, step by step.
So let's just wrap up with this final thought. Being a great communicator isn't about being the loudest person in the room or talking the most, not at all. The people who really command attention, the ones who really connect, they win it by mastering the art of making other people feel completely and deeply heard. And now, you've got the toolkit to do exactly that.